Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to be taking a look at Corsair's A500 dual fan tower cooler. Is it really as bad as they say? Let's find out. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at Corsair's A500. This is Corsair's entry into the market of high-end air coolers, and it is a very decisive thing. Some people really love this thing, they really love the way it looks, the whole theory behind it. A lot of people dislike it a great deal due to some of the kind of major flaws in the actual design process, such as the mounting mechanism, the fans themselves, and also the noise it makes, and things like the manufacturing process where the heat plate isn't exactly milled properly, so it's a little bit uneven on your CPU and therefore reduces its ability to actually cool your processor. So there's a lot of pros, a lot of cons, and at the moment this is retailing in the UK for a ridiculously low £30. I managed to pick one up from ebuyer.co.uk or ebuyer.com, which I think changes the entire perspective of this cooler based on the price. Now, when this was originally released, it was released at around about £90 here in the United Kingdom, and various reviewers found it to be very overpriced and not particularly performing that well, especially against things like the Noctua D15, etc. But now, at this massively reduced price, basically a third of the original price, does this now warrant a place in your next PC build? So let's take a look at the packaging, we'll take a look at the inside, see what we get, we'll do a quick installation on my testbed system, do some benchmarking, and I'll come back with my final results. So first of all, packaging wise, it's Corsair, come on, it's going to look good. They really do know how to make some decent packaging, and as you can see on the front here, got the Corsair logo, got the actual unit itself, A500, and it says high performance dual fan CPU air cooler. Yeah, pretty much sums it up. On the side it says super chilled, which technically is true. It does actually cool pretty well, but is a little bit on the noisy side at the higher end, so less said about that the better probably. Looking at the back of the box, it goes into more of the technical specifications, which I'll put on the screen for you right now so you can check them out for yourself. But essentially, if you're wondering if this will fit in your case, as long as you've got around about 170mm of clearance space between your processor and the glass sides, then you'll be absolutely fine. Width-wise is roughly the same, so if you're worried about fouling of your RAM sticks, then it needs about 171mm. Now, one trick up their sleeve is the mounting mechanism, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. So if you've got an even slightly wider case, then you shouldn't find that to be a problem at all. So that's pretty much it for the packaging. Let's take a look and see what we actually get inside. So first up, we get our mounting hardware, which comes in this nice Corsair box. And inside here we do get the usual suspects, so we get our installation manual. There is a set of AMD fixings which supports everything from AM2, FM1, FM2, AM3, and also there's a separate bag as well with the AM4 mountings, and it's a pretty standard affair, so pretty easy to work with. On the Intel side of things, again, similar sort of thing, so we get our Intel backplate, which is standard for pretty much most coolers these days, and this supports LGA 11.5X and LGA 20X. Also included in the package is a Y splitter for your PWM header. So this has two fans, obviously, as we discussed, so you will need two headers on your motherboard, or alternatively, you can use this convenient Y splitter to plug it into a single CPU header. Also included, which is something of a rarity these days, is couple of cable ties to keep things nice and tidy, and a really nice feature to see is a tube of thermal paste. Now this is the XTM50. There is some pre-applied on the cooler already, but should you wish to change the mounting or put it into another system, you've got a good few shots there ready to go. So the cooler itself actually comes in this strange contraption which keeps it all nice and safe in packaging, and also nice to see included is a Corsair screwdriver, just in case you don't have a long enough cross-headed screwdriver available for actually installing it. Once we break through from the exterior packaging, we get to see this, and this is an absolute beast of a cooler. It is massive, it really and truly is. This weighs in at around about 1.5 kilos, or I think it's 1,490 grams, so it is a big boy no matter which way you look at it. It does, in my opinion, look very, very nice, and you'd think with this amount of weight that there should be enough thermal mass to actually make a significant difference over pretty much most of the coolers on the market. But apparently that isn't the case, but we'll find out on our own testing a little bit later. So looking at the actual design of it itself, again, it's going to be one of those things which, for some people, they may look at it and think, damn, that's ugly. But for some people who are deeply into the Corsair ecosystem and they want an air cooler, to be honest with you, this is the only choice. So for those people, it does make a ton of sense. Looking at the top here, we've got this removable top plate, which has got the Corsair logo. So you can just pop that off and that gains you access to the screws down inside for actually mounting the cooler when it's installed. And this comes off with relative ease. This itself is actually metal and it's pretty weighty as well. Probably one of those things which is maybe a little bit unnecessary, but certainly does give it a very nice finishing touch. The fans themselves have got this really cool mounting mechanism, which I really do like. And for those of you that are regulars to the channel, you do know that I struggle with spring clips a great deal. So to see this is absolutely brilliant and will speed up installation process no end. So if you want to remove the fans, all you need to do is to literally slide them up. There is a mount on the side of the fans, and it's got like a spring clip on the sides here, which keeps it in place. Now this serves as multiple features because obviously it makes it nice and easy to install. But if you've got slightly higher RAM, then you can mount the fans a little bit higher up. Obviously, this is a probably extreme example, but if you've got your RAM chips under there, then you can bring it down a little bit if you need to, raise it up maybe just one slight level, and find the right height for your RGB RAM, although it will possibly cover up some of it, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later when we get it installed. So removing the fans is really nice and easy. And obviously if you want to, because of the issues that are caused by these fans being a little bit noisy on the top end of their RPM, now these fans are rated from 0 to 2400 RPM, which actually is particularly loud, and from some of the noise readings that we've seen already in reviews, we're looking around about 35 decibels, which is getting a little bit on the noisy side. Taking the fans off is really simple to do, so if you do want to replace them, it's a normal 120 mount, so you could actually just undo those screws and replace them with maybe some noctua fans or something a little bit quieter. That's definitely an option. And of course you can replace them if you want to with Corsair's light loop fans if you want to go for that entire RGB bling setup. And you may also reduce some of the noise. These fans as standard are the ML120 fans, so they are nice fans, but they do get a little bit on the noisy side. Did I mention they're a little bit noisy? I think I might have done. So looking at the cooler with the fans removed, you can see it's pretty much a standard affair. We've got a relatively open design now for the fins, so that should allow air to pass through quite easily. And also we've got a 4 heat pipe setup. So actually what they've done slightly unusually is they've actually changed some of the sizes of the heat pipes. So the exterior ones, or the ones on the outside, are 6mm pipes, whereas the ones in the middle are 8mm pipes, which will serve some benefit, obviously hotspot being traditionally in the middle area, so you've got bigger heat pipes there to transfer some of that heat away. And actually, even now, just taking this out of the box, they are actually really cold to the touch, so not that that's anything to go by, but it's interesting nonetheless. So actually taking a look at the heat pipes section, so the heat pipes are exposed at the bottom on this cold plate, and you can see there's the pre-applied paste on there in that kind of waffle style. So this is going to be nice and easy to install should you want to install it. Maybe you're a newbie, not quite sure of how it all goes together. Because the heat paste is applied already and literally it's a case of 2 screws, installation should be an absolute breeze. Although you will have to make sure that you've got plenty of room inside your case. Another nice feature for me personally is the way that it's finished, all in this kind of black chrome or nickel finish. I actually really like this, and it's certainly a step in the right direction from what we're used to seeing with those kind of just plain aluminium setups, which do in my mind look a little bit dated now. Heat rating wise, now this has got a rating or an estimation of a TDP of around about 250 watts, which is pretty high up there, and as with most manufacturers, TDP ratings don't really mean a great deal. Essentially, all you can do is get it inside your system and test it, or like most of us do, is to watch plenty of reviews and get a balanced opinion of what it will actually perform like. Now, in my particular review, I'm going to be using a Ryzen 5 3600, which a lot of you will point out and say, well, that's not a particularly high wattage chip. But no, but I think it is actually, for this being around about £30 at the moment, and that chip being a kind of mid-range chip and possibly one of the most popular ones on the market right now, I think this is going to give it a good stead of a potential upgrade from your stock Wraith cooler. So with all that said, let's get on with it, stick it in the PC, do some tests, and I'll come back with my results at the very end. Okay, so we've done our testing and installation, and as you will probably recognise straight away, there's obviously an issue. It's still on the desk. And yes, it is. Good reason for that is because I really struggled to actually close the tempered glass side panel on the side of my case. And this was installed into the GameX F15, which actually isn't a particularly small case, it's relatively wide, but there was a couple of millimeters, it just would not do it. I think that case covers up to about 165, 167 mil, and I could get the glass halfway in, managed to get a reasonably good seal, but I wasn't comfortable about having the glass sandwiched up against the sides of the fan and the cooler assembly. So yeah, it had to come back out. But having said that, it did perform particularly well. And if we go through some of the figures now, we'll explain how that all went. But first of all, I suppose I should touch on the installation process. Now, the installation process with the AM4, very simple indeed. Literally use the AM4 backplate as standard, and there's 4 included mountings, which is circular. There's hexagonal ones for the older AM3, and literally it's a matter of putting a bracket on, putting 4 screws in, and then essentially you're ready to go. All you need to do then is line up the cooler with the actual base plate and do up 2 screws. So it is very, very simple to do. Although, because this is quite a big beastie, you will need some level of dexterity just to be able to actually hold it in place if you're doing it on a vertical mounting. If you're doing it with it flat on a desk onto a new motherboard, then it's going to be absolutely simple, very, very straightforward indeed. But like I said, if you are mounting it into an existing system and you are having it vertical, then yeah, you may struggle a little bit. Anyway, that's enough of that. The installation, again, yeah, very, very simple to do. The fans just slotting in was absolutely fantastic, pun intended, and made life very, very simple. Just a shame I couldn't keep the side closed on the PC. So anyway, going on to our tests. So again, this was tested with Ryzen 5 3600 in an ASUS X570 motherboard, and just using the stock settings with Precision Boost Overclock enabled. And also we've got 2 sets of results, one with PWM, which is the standard ASUS PWM settings, and also then with the CPU cooler fan at 100%, but with the rest of the case fans in their stock configuration. Also of note is the ambient temperature. We recorded it as 22 degrees in here. It does shift a little bit here and there. So obviously these tests, although I've tried to do my best to keep them as accurate as possible, there will be some slight deviations. As a side note, I have actually checked my results against some of the results obtained by others, such as Steve over at Gamers Nexus. Thanks, Steve. And yeah, my findings pretty much mirror what he found, although he was using a much higher wattage processor. So do take that into consideration when you look at the results. And speaking of the results, so here we have the A500 tower cooler. So here we have on the top, we've got the A500 at 100% fan speed. So that's around about 2400 RPMs. And we had a highest temperature running Cinebench R20 in a loop of 58 degrees, which was actually very good. And the lowest recorded temperature with the system completely idling, with OneDrive disabled and all the other programs closed down, we got down to 29 degrees. So 7 degrees over ambient. There we go, our ambient temperature there at 22 degrees. We moved down to a more realistic test. So this is with the test in a normal configuration with the system running R20 Cinebench with the PWM enabled, which is what most people are going to use. To be completely honest with you, at 2400 RPM, this is unbearable. It is exceptionally loud, and for prolonged use, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. But having said that, with the PWM settings and ASUS doing the fan control, and actually with a little bit of tweaking, this is set to ramp up to pretty much 70% at 70 degrees, which actually works out really well in terms of noise and performance. The processor itself never got anywhere near that, and the fan speed was always around about the kind of 60% mark under the full load, which really makes the fans, you're looking at somewhere between 1500 and 1700 RPM, which at this point, it is pretty much silent again. You can hear air traveling through the fans, etc., but it's not distracting and certainly no louder than any of the other fans in the case itself. So if we do look at the PWM results, so we've got 2 degrees higher on the maximum temperatures, it's 60 degrees on the high side. On the low side, we've still got 30 degrees, which is certainly a very decent score. And again, this is in a 22 ambient degree room. So that's all well and good. It seems to be very good. So let's see how it actually compares with some of the other coolers we've tested recently. So on this chart now, we've got it compared with the XPG Levant, the Noctua NHU12S, also the Gelid Tornado, and of course, obviously, the Corsair A500. And it actually puts in a pretty good showing. We're looking at the high side of a very good showing, a little bit better than the Noctua NHU12S, and quite a bit better than the Gelid Tornado. Not quite as good as the XPG Levant, but again, within kind of margin of error there. This essentially comes down to one thing and one thing only. Purely this is thermal mass, because this is an absolutely huge cooler. Again, 170mm, pretty much squared height and width. It is a big old cooler. So obviously there's a lot of thermal mass there to absorb the heat coming from the processor. Again, this is with a Ryzen 5 3600. If we use a larger or more hot processor, then these results will vary. But again, because of this now being around about 30 to 40 pounds, in most shopping outlets, eBuyer, Amazon, etc., etc., This now comfortably fits into that range of where people who've got a little bit of money to spend and have maybe got the processor already, but just want to reduce the temperatures or just want something which looks a little bit different. This is now targeted firmly at that kind of mid-range or mid to high-end range of people. So let's put this in a comparison. So if you look at the price, the XPG Levant, obviously £100, does beat it, but this is less than half the price. So if you're looking for a relatively simple solution, albeit with some caveats such as having enough room in your case, that kind of thing, and being able to get the sides back on the PC, then that does come into consideration. This is by no means compact, although it is very easy to install and does have the flexibility should you have a large enough case. So conclusions, well, essentially I would say if you've got the room in your system and perhaps you've got a Corsair based case or Corsair RAM or other Corsair components and you just want to have the logo and all that kind of stuff so it all matches in. People do tend to do that, so they go for a certain brand and they go maybe all MSI or all ASUS or whatever the case may be. So yeah, if you're planning to go all Corsair and you do want an air cooler rather than a water cooler, then this is obviously a good solution. It doesn't work for everybody. Obviously you do need a monstrous case. I can't really stress that enough. You are going to need a relatively large case. A lot of cases on the market, such as the GameX F15, the Lancool 2 and the Lianli 215, they're also going to struggle with this. Certain other cases, even the Micro ATX case, such as the one I've got behind me, actually does have a depth for it, so I could quite easily put it in there, although on a Ryzen 3 3100 it would probably be a little bit wasted. So essentially it comes down to price and whether or not it'll physically fit in your machine. If it'll fit in your machine, I think the price is right, around about £40. There isn't really much other on the market. You could pay a little bit more, maybe go for the Noctua NHU12S, which obviously does make things a little bit easier for installation, etc., and will get you in the similar sort of ballpark performance-wise. So that leaves me with, would I recommend it? Essentially, probably not. It is a little bit too big, and it does lack a little bit of something. There's something about it which, I don't know whether it's a little bit bland or whatever it may be. The style side of things is a very much user-centric thing. Some people may prefer this kind of more muted look. Me personally, I'm not overly keen. I like a little bit of RGB or just something a little bit different, maybe some illumination, or even if it was all black, maybe if the fans were black and it was all blacked out as well, that would actually look a little bit nicer in my opinion. But again, that is all down to your own personal preferences. So anyway, I'll let you guys make your own minds up on that. You've seen the figures that I've got from the Ryzen 5 3600, and obviously you can go to Steve at Gamers Nexus and check out the results he had with his 3800, and there's been plenty of other reviews, so you can check out all the individual reviews and then make up your own mind. So I'll leave some affiliated links for this in the video description below. Please do let me know in the comments what you think of it. Is it something you would consider buying? Have you actually got a case big enough to put it in? I'm really interested to know what you've got. So I think that's going to sum this one up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.